that like an energy drink or?
No, it's like a seltzer spiked sparkling water.
Yeah, and
I
this
don't know.
is
My wife.
the introduction, courtesy our friend Dynasty Frank,
Oh
because we
gosh.
are now sponsored by Sparkling Seltzer Water. And what's up,
Hey,
everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football home over at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You can follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me tonight from the man cave, from the dog kennel, it's Ron the Mad Dog McCleese. What's up, Ron?
We're back. Yes, definitely in the man cave once again, and getting used to punching the clock with you and doing these shows. It's been a lot of fun, and been looking forward to having someone big in the dynasty world. But we're going to talk a big division tonight, and yeah, we got a lot to talk about. A lot of preseason games to get excited about and overreact, Kyle,
Yeah,
to these
yeah. It's
performances we're seeing.
a tradition unlike any other. And here to help us do all that, you know him from Twitter, you know him from the Bull Rush, you know him from the Fantasy Authority. It's Dynasty Frank. What's up, Dynasty Frank?
what's up, fellas? How's it going? It's great to be back on the Angle of Pursuit. This is new. We're on video.
Yeah, we're
Like
on
mom.
video.
Hi, mom.
We're live on the internet, as they say,
On the line.
on the line. So yeah, officially,
We
like
just
we're
went viral, guys.
walking the
This is a
tight.
big
Well,
day.
yeah. I mean, we're on the line. Let's start there. We can go viral next week, maybe, if there's time. But yeah, Ron alluded to it. We are going to preview the NFC East, and we thought, why not get a Giants fan? Bring in some common sense and some rationality with Ron, who decided that a Des Bryant jersey was how he was going to go out tonight, and yeah. So
Uh,
that we'll see how tonight goes. And Ron, we'll start with those Dallas Cowboys. If you missed it, we did do a show on Friday talking Zeke, talking Sammy Watkins, talking Jordan Matthews. But Frank, I wanted to get your kind of instant reaction. Zeke's out 6 games. If you're heading into redraft this weekend, you don't know if the suspension is going to get shortened. Where are you comfortable taking him in your drafts?
if it gets shortened, and I hope like to 4 games, I'm still taking him where he's going. What is in the 104 to like 106 range?
Yeah.
If he gets 6 games or more, no, or more. Sorry, if he gets 6 games, um, I don't. He's going to drop to the second round, right where his ADP is at now. I think he's going 13th overall as of today. But like last month, he was at 104, 105, 106 overall. So if it stays at six games, I'm okay taking him at the end of the first, early second.
And are you taking Darren McFadden? Like, are you making sure you land him, even if that means 5th or 6th round, or are you comfortable kind of
Yeah,
getting whatever running back is there?
I'm kind of comfortable getting whatever. I don't have to have Darren McFadden. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, he's going in the 12th round, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Right. Well, and I
So
was looking at his ADP on Fantasy Football Calculator. As of Thursday, he was going in the 13th round. As of last night, he was actually all the way up to the 10th round. So clearly, he's
Yeah,
going higher. There was one draft where he went in the 5th round. So
No.
it feels like his ADP is going to skyrocket, and obviously there will be some overdrafting, and you might end up in that league with that one guy who, wants to get him in the 6th. I mean, we saw a certain version of it a year ago with Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams, and D'Angelo Williams ended up shooting up the draft boards, and yeah, it was nice to have that locked up, but
Hold
man,
on, Kyle. You're comparing D'Angelo Williams to Darren McFadden. Please don't do that. And
He
I'll
will
just
go
I
go.
mean, this
to
is
I'll go on record.
this is the same Darren McFadden. I know it was 2 seasons ago, but in a shortened season, went over 1,000 yards. He looked like a legit back. Obviously, that line is amazing. I mean, if you want to say I have Zeke or I have Cowboys running back, then you have to take Darren McFadden too, and then you give yourself a little insurance kind of as the season goes. But taking 2 top 5, 6 round picks, that feels really aggressive.
It's too aggressive, and I'm actually going to be the outcast here, even though I'm wearing a Cowboys jersey. Shout out to Dez, my boy. No, there's no way. I'm not going to own Zeke because I think you guys are being a little too aggressive here. There's this big cloud surrounding Zeke. We don't know. It's the great unknown, and for me, I'm not touching him before like the 4th, 5th round, and I'm not going to own him. I mean, basically, I'm just going ahead and telling you guys that. and I get it that if you want to back him up, I mean, quite honestly, what I've seen from Alf, yeah, you guys can laugh. I honestly think this will become more of a 50-50 timeshare.
Yeah.
Alf profiles better as a first and second down thumper anyway. And the change of pace guy with Darren McFadden, who can catch the football, he is good in that phase of the game. Nothing against McFadden, but the Cowboys have to be cognizant of the fact that less carries means he's on the field for a longer period of time and less risk as far as injuries go. And obviously, we know the history with Darren McFadden, so I'm not questioning his talent. Yes, he's shown that before that he can. We saw a stretch of like 5 or 6 games, a couple years ago, towards the end of the season where he was a beast, and he got that high volume. And if he gets that high volume, then you guys are right and I'm wrong, and he's going to be valuable the first 6 weeks of the season. But can you legitimately tell me that you feel good about drafting Zeke in, where you guys are saying you would take him in the second and then say taking McFadden in the 8th or 9th?
No.
To me, I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm not taking. The only reason why I say Darren McFadden is the one to grab is because he has done it before, right? In 2015, 239 times, 239 rushes, 1,089 yards, and like 3 touchdowns, right? So he can and has done it in 2015. I don't like where his price. If it's at the 10, 11, 12 rounds, then yes. But McFadden's not going there. He like Hal just said, he's going in the what 8th in the 10th round,
Yeah,
and then he's
climbing.
He's just good. But if we want to just play around with Zeke's numbers, like let's take 6 games out of what he did last year. And I know it's extrapolate. It's crazy to do, but let's just have some fun.
Absolutely.
Right?
Let's do it.
He'd have 215 carries, 1,090 yards, and 10 touchdowns. That's almost similar numbers to Devontae Freeman, what he had last year, who finished running back 6 in PPR points.
Here's my issue, Frank, is the fact that the Cowboys had that Week 7 bye, so you're not getting him realistically if this suspension holds up until Week 8. And then Week 8, are they going to throw him out there for 25 carries his first week back?
Yeah,
probably. But
he's going to run like a madman.
Yes.
Yeah, I have him projected for 195 carries, 914 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Something I would be very, very happy to own over the second half. And I think, if they lean a little more on the run, those numbers could be even better. I'm with you, Frank. I'm not touching Darren McFadden unless he's kind of in that double-digit round range. I'm guessing someone will be a little more aggressive. But, I was looking at ADP. Terrence West sticks out like a sore thumb in the 8th round. I can get Rob Kelly in the 9th round. Both these guys
Quiz going.
Quiz is going right in that range. He's another guy.
Rob.
But the thing about those guys that I like over getting McFadden is you could have an RB2 to pair with Zeke when Zeke's back. Where if you have McFadden on your team, he's a handcuff and that's it once Zeke is back. So you could actually, if assuming you play your cards right, and there's always a Jay Ajayi, there's a Jordan Howard, there's someone that'll pop on the waiver wire. So if you do your work, Kareem Hunt could be that guy. If you take Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine could be that guy. Maybe Jacquizz Rodgers gets hurt and you're picking up Jeremy McNichols. I don't know. There will be somebody, maybe a couple somebodies. Maybe Joe Williams takes over when Carlos Hyde gets hurt. I don't know.
No.
I'm 100% with you, Frank. I want Carlos Hyde to be a star. I love him in Shanahan's offense, but it's in the realm of possibilities. Maybe someone in Denver.
Frank, are you high on Hyde too?
I am high on Hyde. Yes.
I feel like I'm the only one, and it's starting to bother me. But thank God you're here.
No, it's fine. There's some smarter guys than I am, and I'm glad you said that you're on Hyde's, and both of you said you're on Hyde's a team, a train, because I loved Hyde, Shanahan offense. But there's some smart guys. I think Michael Clay likes Hyde.
Yeah, there's a few of us. We have a few weekly meetings. We talk about Carlos Hyde, but
I guess my invitation got lost because I love Carlos Hyde.
I'll send you an invite. You'll get one in the mail. Don't worry. Thanks. But let's talk about the Cowboys passing attack and kind of, Frank, with Zeke out, assuming it's those 6 games, do you think they lean a little more on the pass? Do you think Dak gets a chance to, chuck it a little bit more? And is that necessarily a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all know that the loss of Zeke is so huge, especially for a second-year quarterback who the league had all off-season to game plan and get him off basically out of his groove with Zeke in the lineup. Without Zeke, it's just Dak. We just talked about how Darren McFadden could handle the workload, but he's not Zeke. Nobody is Zeke. And a young quarterback getting asked to do more, I think it's just going to be a problem. It's going to be more. He was, what, 30th? Back 30th in attempts, 23rd in completions. I don't even know in yards, like 18th in yards. That was with Zeke.
Yeah.
I just don't think that defenses are going to respect the run game. I think they're going to just make Dak beat them. And if you guys remember last year, the Giants basically gave the league a blueprint on how to beat the Cowboys. You stop Zeke, and have Dak Prescott try to throw to Dez Bryant, because we all know how Dez is against top 25 cornerbacks, right?
Which he
Brian,
faces basically all season.
Yes, basically all season.
Yeah,
taking shots at him.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but I mean, Zach, Frank's right about Dak. I mean, he threw 459 times last year. He completed 68% of his passes, but 23 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. And
guys, go ahead.
Yeah, all I'm gonna say is, if those attempts, say they go up 100, those interceptions are gonna be a lot closer to 10 than they are to 5.
He was a rookie. That's the only thing I'll say to you guys. Like, we judge rookies under a microscope. We expect, the top rookies to perform at a high level. I've heard, Frank talk about Corey Coleman and just how we all just fell in love with him and expected the world, and that landing spot was just the worst. My point here is that this was a perfect storm, perfect landing spot for Dak. He was a rookie. This is a guy that I think can grow in his second year in the NFL. They can ask him to do more, and let's also not forget the fact that he scored 6 rushing touchdowns. So who's to say with Zeke out that they don't ask him to do more as far as with his legs when they get in the red zone or they get close to the goal line, and instead of just every time punching it in with Zeke, who's not there, instead of doing that, maybe they call some more plays for Dak to kind of roll out and make something else happen with his legs. He can do that, so that's another thing that kind of keeps me optimistic about him being able to still, despite his deficiencies as far as a quarterback as far as passing, I still think that he can help you out with his legs. And I think that another year working with Dez Bryant is going to be to his benefit and Dez's benefit. So I think he'll trust him more. And yeah, I mean, Dez is always going to be paired, like Frank said, with the best cornerback. He's going to get that bracket double coverage. Just expect it, but he is the one guy that can beat it if he's healthy.
The one thing I will say is, go for it, Frank.
I'm sorry, real quick stat. Since 2014, Dez Bryant has 1 touchdown against top 25 rated cornerbacks. 1 since 2014. He has 376 total yards against top 25 cornerbacks. Against bottom 25 quarterbacks, he's a beast. I mean, he's got 12 touchdowns. He's an absolute animal. But against tough defenses, tough cornerbacks. Plus, Dak has got according to 4for4, he's got the 3rd hardest passing strength of schedule for quarterbacks. 3rd hardest.
Great point, Frank. You did your homework. You are bringing up the numbers, and they're not lying. But can I ask you a question? Sure. In this division that we're previewing tonight, how many top 25 cornerbacks are in this division? I mean, you can guess.
There's at least 3 of them.
Well, so he's gonna face Janoris Jenkins. He's gonna face Aqib Talib. He's gonna face Patrick Peterson. He's gonna face Marcus Peters. This guy named Josh Norman's pretty good. Tremaine Johnson, Desmond Trufant, Casey Hayward. Oh, and then Richard Sherman. So let me just break down those ranks. According to Pro Football Focus, Janoris Jenkins was your 8th rated cornerback. Aqib Talib was number 3. Patrick Peterson was 14. Jermaine Johnson's 25. Josh Norman's 24. Marcus Peters is 11. Desmond Trufant is 32, so maybe he feasts there. Casey Hayward was 6th, and Richard Sherman was 12th. So, Frank's stat in terms one touchdown against top 25 guys, and he's facing, he's
Since
got
2015.
yeah. So over several seasons. I will say Dez did pick up steam last year, and he was a big part of why a lot of people won championships last year. But that schedule is brutal, and that could mean that while you in Dez Bryant, he's not going to make up for it with the yards. You need those touchdowns for him to be an elite fantasy option. So Ron, with that schedule, with Dak in year 2. With knowing you need those touchdowns, are you still as comfortable drafting Dez Bryant without Zeke for 6 games?
Yes, because I think they will make him a focal point, in the red zone to get him the ball, just force feed him the ball in the red zone. And yeah, I mean, Dak's going to have to make some good plays, and he's going to have to throw it up there. There's going to be some interceptions, definitely. We're going to see that, and there's going to be weeks when he gets shut down, like you guys are bringing up. The numbers, prove that. But I think he can beat half those guys, and even if it's one play, I mean, maybe he's shut down the whole game, and in the fourth quarter he makes that one, play in the end zone over a top 25 cornerback, and he scores a touchdown. So garbage points count. I mean, we saw Jordan Howard do it time and time again last year. Jordan Howard, garbage time performer, and we don't care. We just want points.
Yeah, and it sounds like
I just have a problem taking him at the 207. Sorry.
Yeah.
In the second round. Ahead of T.Y. Hilton, ahead of Doug Baldwin, ahead of DeAndre Hopkins, Demaryius Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Demaryius Thomas is going to the 3rd round, and he's been nothing but a steady wide receiver. His floor is, it's just a constant, consistent play. Keenan Allen, Alshon Jeffrey, who we haven't gotten to yet, who I think is going to have a nice year. It's just, I don't know, the price tag, Dez Bryant, it just all seems like if anybody's going to take a step back, it's going to be the Cowboys in general, Dez Bryant specifically, and now, of course, Zeke and Dak just indirectly.
Yeah, and I think if you're going in on Dez, you have to give yourself some wide receiver stability, whether that means, you take Michael Crabtree, maybe you take, Brandon Marshall, Larry Fitzgerald, in PPR leagues, Pierre Garçon, guys that are going to get you solid production on a week-to-week basis. So the weeks where Dez does get shut down and he doesn't find the end zone, you're not completely destroyed, and your receiving core will kind of put up that solid week-to-week bonus. And then the weeks where Dez goes off, he can single-handedly win you a week. But you're really going to need.
If I can, to your point, Kyle, if I could get Doug Baldwin in the 3rd. Or even, like Frank alluded to, we're talking about him later, Jeffrey, the injury history's there.
Yeah.
But those are the type of receivers to pair with him who, definitely could help buy time in those first 6-7 weeks when you're, worried about this offense moving the football without Zeke and that,
you could always
top running back.
You could always draft Cole Beasley in the 11th round, 130th overall. And he was nothing but he had 75 receptions, 833 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's wide receiver 25.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean? Like
we're talking about this. We're talking about the schedule and the amount of elite corners Dez is going to face, and that kind of makes me want to get guys that are in this offense that are not Dez Bryant. Like Cole Beasley is a guy that I definitely am very interested in. I know Terrence Williams is wildly inconsistent, but he seems to do much, much better when Dez is on the field getting that attention. Ron, are you in on Beasley or Terrence Williams late in your drafts?
I mean, as dart throws, I have more faith in Beasley just because of, in PPR leagues, what he's been able to accomplish. He's definitely an underrated option on an offense that they're going to need to find secondary options. That Dak's going to need to find those guys, especially with that schedule you guys are bringing up. So, yeah, I definitely think he would be one. And there's going to be weeks when Terrence Williams does go off and he can make those big plays, but then he'll disappear for 2 or 3 weeks. So there's no consistency with him.
Yeah.
So
throw him out there
and
best ball.
Yeah, best ball, exactly. That's about it.
Yeah. Frank, is Rico Gathers a thing, or are we going to see another top 12 season from Jason Witten?
I think Rico Gathers is a thing, but not this year. I think it's going to be Witten all the way. I think reports were that Rico's got a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're grooming him. It seems like they're grooming him to take over. You're hearing nothing but great things. You see great things. I think the touchdown he caught was the first one since high school, which is crazy. How somebody can be in NFL and catch it.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you play college basketball.
He's caught 2 back-to-back games. So I guess
right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
honestly, I think he is a thing. I think this is a guy that this might be the year that Witten passes that torch to Rico. Obviously, we know with tight ends that learning curve is steep, and typically we don't see production until maybe the 3rd year in the NFL. So it's kind of hard to buy in on Rico, but it's one of those things where it has the feel of a breakout to me.
It has the feel of a Martellus Bennett season when he first joined the Cowboys.
Right.
A guy that we'll see flash from time to time. A guy that has a lot to get excited about.
First 5 games, catch a touchdown,
and then he'll go sit on the bench for the rest of the season. I feel like we'll see him for a little bit here and there, but Jason Witten's will be the old steady that kind of
for this year, I think.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah, obviously in Dynasty, Gathers is a guy that if he's still floating around your waiver wires, you need to be running out and adding, or see if you can buy on the cheap.
Definitely.
At this point, if he's owned, he's probably going to be hard to pry away for after the preseason buzz and stuff. Let's head up to Philly and talk about those Eagles. Another second-year quarterback, another guy that he's kind of in that back end of the QBs where you feel kind of comfortable about having him as your number 1 guy. Frank, would you rather own Dak Prescott or Carson Wentz this year?
This year, I'm gonna say Dak. Actually, with everything we just said, right?
Yeah.
I'm still gonna say Dak because he's gonna Zeke back eventually. And that I'm telling you, I just think Zeke opens up that offense, balances that offense, so they can do whatever they want. The defense has to be reactionary instead of, proactive.
Yeah.
But as far as with Carson Wentz, I mean, he's got the worst schedule. All right, according to 4for4, he's got the hardest quarterback schedule. He had some great. I mean, he was 5th in pass attempts, 6th. This is what's awesome. 6th in red zone attempts with 91.
Yeah.
And I love that Alshon Jeffrey's on this team now. So I'm expecting some just toss him up. You know what I mean? Like some not Darius. Oh my God, who's the Tennessee? Who's that quarterback that just let go? The big tall quarterback, DHB. Anyway,
Dorial
you know what I
Green-Beckham?
mean? Yes, Dorial Green-Beckham. Thank you very much. He's like that tall wide receiver that we were all hoping.
Yeah.
Like just DGB, just toss it up, throw it up to him. But now they actually got somebody who can go up and catch it. Alshon Jeffrey, when healthy, is that wide receiver. So there are good things to like about Carson Wentz. There's some bad things to like. Like, I'm not a big Torrey Smith fan. Like, I'm done with that. Like, you have Alshon Jeffrey, you have Zach Ertz. Your run game, LeGarrette Blount, great. But, last year was great. But I don't know. So I'm going to go with Dak if I'm picking between the two. I'd rather have Dak on my team.
I think I'm rolling with Wentz. Obviously, threw it over 600 times, which you like. They added Jeffrey. They added Torrey Smith. Nelson Aguilar's becoming a thing. Obviously, Jordan Matthews is gone. Some of their other pieces that the Dorial Green-Beckhams that they were trying to make happen that clearly were not are gone. So he has legit receivers. He has Zach Ertz. We're going to talk about Mac Hollins here in a little bit. He's got him. You mentioned the amount of times they threw in the red zone. I wonder if that changes a little bit with Blunt in town. It feels that year where Blake Bortles was just chucking it in the red zone and had a really nice season. I do like those attempts, but there's also, like you said, that schedule that they're facing. He had his 600 attempts last year and wasn't super productive with it. So you can't go too crazy. Ron, break the tie. Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott this year?
Ask the Cowboy fan who he's gonna pick.
Well, I actually do like Carson Wentz this year. I feel like, we saw was the first 4 games last year. He threw 2 touchdowns in 3 of those 4 games, and then he kind of hit a wall. And I don't know exactly what happened with that offense, but there were a lot of issues they had. And then the rest of the season, I think there was only 2 more games that he threw for 2 touchdowns. So we definitely saw a little glimpse of Carson Wentz early on to get excited about, and then the rest of the season was just like blah, rookie wall, call it whatever you want to call it. But again, he was a rookie. To Frank's point, he gets that big time, red zone target that he hasn't really had. Jordan Matthews, slot guy, 2 different, coaching staffs tried to make him an outside receiver. They failed. That's because he's not an outside receiver. So there really wasn't a big target there for him in that red zone to play that role. And I think he can be Jay Cutler-esque, where he can just, have that faith and build that chemistry in Alshon, where he won't be scared to just throw it up and let him high point that ball over his defenders. So I definitely see the upside there, adding a major weapon. And I like Torrey Smith stretching the field and hitting some home runs for this team. Every once in a while. Again, another best ball type player that is not going to have any type of consistency, but he will have some big games throughout the season. We know this. And obviously the other guys, you said Nelson Aguilar is a thing. I don't know if I'd go that far.
Yeah. The drum beat's building. The drum beat's building. They're making room for him.
He has an opportunity. That's all. That's how I'll put it.
Hey. Based on the way he started in his NFL career, the fact that he still has an opportunity is something. And I do like that they have Alshon Jeffrey and Frank. This is a guy that is going in the 4th round. Obviously health is always a question mark with him, but that feels like a tremendous value, and a guy, like Ron said, throwing it up to Alshon, let him go make plays and do work. And, all of a sudden you have, if you get 14 games out of Alshon, I think you have a really good shot at getting a top 12, top 15-ish type wide receiver.
I totally agree. I like Alshon this year. If he hits, he can definitely be a top 12, top 10 wide receiver, and you get him in the 4th round. I don't want to keep bashing this, but like Des Bryant there's some players that are up there that I would take Alshon over, especially this year. I'm good, redraft.
Yeah, and if I'm looking, I'd much rather go T.Y. Hilton, Brandon Cooks, Doug Baldwin early, and then take my gamble with a big receiver that has touchdown upside in Alshon and pair them, rather than grabbing Dez earlier and then hoping that I get, Crabtree or Jarvis Landry or Golden Tate or something. Ron, are your team Alshon for this year as well? You're muted, Ron.
I lost audio.
Ron, you're muted.
I was just going to say, will you take Keenan Allen kind of in that same range? I know he's going a little bit ahead of Alshon, but
man, that's tough.
Depending on where you're drafting.
Honestly, if I'm in PPR, I'm probably taking Keenan, and if I'm in Standard, I'm probably taking Alshon. I'm going to try like hell to get both.
That's fair.
Right. Well, they're going right next to each other. Keenan's going 1 pick or 1 wide receiver at the 308, and Alshon's going at 401.
Yeah.
I think we also have to consider the fact that this is a 1-year deal with Alshon. It's kind of show me contract. If he's ever going to be motivated to do something and to get a big contract, whether it be with Philadelphia Eagles or some other contending team maybe next year, there's got to be some extra motivation and fire in this guy to I know he was definitely excited to be playing with Carson Wentz, and change of scenery is good for this guy. I really do. I'm a huge Alshon Jeffrey fan. I'm upset that he's gone, but at the same time, I think it was time for him to get a fresh start somewhere and hopefully stay healthy for the first time in a long time, which is asking a lot.
Yeah.
This East is packed with skilled players. It's just a fantastic division. It's the best division in all of football.
The names are running through tonight. It's pretty insane. Elite wide receivers, top end running backs. There's a lot to like. Obviously, we could have hit on some of the pass catchers. Torrey Smith, a great guy for best ball formats, will be good for this offense, but not necessarily someone you want in redraft. Aguilar is probably the same. Mac Hollins is interesting, probably a a watch list type guy. Nothing I'm, running out to the waiver, running to, make sure I get him in leagues. But I think Zach Ertz is a guy we need to discuss. I think, the departure of Jordan Matthews opens up a lot for Ertz. You really need him to maybe, a couple more touchdowns. Like, people have kind of talked about him being kind of like what Travis Kelce's been the past couple of years. A lot of catches, a lot of yards, maybe not a ton of touchdowns. Frank, if he's healthy and, plays all 16 games in this offense, there's a lot of potential for him to be pretty close to that top 5 at tight end.
Oh, absolutely. And he's going in the 9th round. He's getting drafted as tight end 11 right now. And just like you said, Kyle, J. Matt is not in the slot anymore, and that's usually where tight ends work the middle of the field. He needs to score a little bit more touchdowns. He'll show up for a game and then not, and then show up. He's very inconsistent. Like Ertz owners have been so frustrated with him due to his inconsistency. So I think you're right. I think he's going to see the targets. He should see targets. And the price tag you have to pay for him, the last pick in the 9th round, he's practically free, and he can be a top 5 tight end for you. I mean, he's got the ability and the opportunity to be a top 5.
Frank, are you taking Zach Ertz or Kyle Rudolph?
You know what? I haven't seen what Kyle Rudolph is.
Kyle Rudolph.
Rudolph.
He's in the 8th. Ertz is in the end of the 9th. So, about a round and a half difference. But, assuming
I think Rudolph.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to Rudolph.
I think I'm going Ertz.
He's just
Ron, what about you? Ertz or Rudolph?
I'll break the tie. I'm going to go Ertz just because I feel like with Jordan Matthews gone now, someone has to take on 117 targets, guys. I mean, that's what he had last year. He averaged 116 targets in his 3 years with the Eagles, playing that slot role and being miscast, trying to play outside, which it didn't work. So definitely, I think this is a guy that's going to be the first guy, to pick up a lot of those targets and have more opportunities to make those plays. So Rudolph, I think he's more of a touchdown heavy or dependent type tight end. And I just feel like we're going to see a little bit more from some of those other secondary options this year in Minnesota. Maybe we'll see a Treadwell sighting here and there, but for the most part, I just feel
that's
more
about
comfortable about it.
That's me wanting Aguilar to be a thing, Ron. I traded for Treadwell in a couple leagues, but I'm not very excited about his potential. Are either of you guys taking Zach Ertz over?
I'm sorry, Kyle Rudolph was the second scoring tight end last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's done it. I like the but Zach Ertz was the 6th. So.
And he didn't get a lot of touchdowns. If those touchdowns go up, all of a sudden he's in that range. Are you guys taking Hunter Henry or Zach Ertz?
Zach Ertz, because isn't Henry going in early?
They're right there. 907 in PPR leagues per fantasy football calculator. 907 for Henry, 911 for Ertz.
I'm gonna say Ertz only because San Diego still loves. As long as Antonio Gates is in town, even though Hunter Henry was much more efficient, was much better. I mean, if you just watch the San Diego game,
I mean, as a rookie,
Hunter Henry's the truth.
As a rookie tight end to perform the way he did, it was incredible. And I know they were saying they were really trying to get Gates that record. So obviously that's kind of why
he needs one more touchdown, right?
Yeah, I think he gets it quickly, and then I think
just one. Yeah,
I think those targets flip. I think Gates is like 50-something targets, and Henry's like closer to 90. But I'm also taking Ertz. Ron, are you in agreement?
Yeah, the trifecta here. Ertz, he's going to have the targets, and in PPR leagues, that's what we all play in. He's going to have more receptions, and quite honestly, we could see more touchdowns from Henry. But he was, again, as a rookie, that's where he kind of scored all his points were in the red zone, and with those looks he was getting. And to Frank's point, you got to think that as long as Gates is out there and healthy, he's going to still be one of those trusted options over the middle and in the red zone for Philip Rivers. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. And I just don't see that as many receptions for Hunter Henry, regardless of whether Gates is there or not.
Yeah. Last person before we head up to Frank's New York Giants, LeGarrette Blount. Obviously, amazing offense at the Patriots, had 18 touchdowns, was a huge, fantasy football contributor a season ago. Obviously, none of us expect him to do that, but Frank, last time he left New England and headed to a team in the state of Pennsylvania, he was cut within the first couple weeks, and obviously that was the whole Le'Veon Bell stuff. What are you expecting from him in Philly? What kind of expectations, I guess? What do you think he's going to do this season?
Oof. I don't think he's going to score 18 touchdowns again. I don't think he's going to see those 71 to 80 carries in the red zone. I can't see that happening. I think he's going to be his ceiling. All right, his ceiling in my mind, Blunt's ceiling is a low-end running back too.
Yeah.
Like that's the best you're going to get out of Blunt. A low-end running back too.
So are you comfortable?
I don't think.
Are you comfortable taking him in the 6th round around Doug Martin, Paul Perkins, Tevin Coleman, Theo Riddick?
No. I'd rather have Theo Riddick. I'd rather have Tevin Coleman, especially in PPR. I mean, we're only talking PPR here, right? We're not talking standard. Then Blunt would definitely be ahead of that. I'd rather have Eddie Lacy over LeGarrette Blount, Frank Gore for one more year. But no. I don't think he's gonna be that.
Yeah, I'm not super optimistic either. Ron, what about you? Are you gonna you have a little more optimism for LeGarrette Blount?
I have pretty much probably less optimism than you guys do, and it's not much. That's not saying much, but yeah, it's situational. Last year, what we saw was the outlier for him, and he played that role perfectly. But you're talking about an Eagles team that's probably gonna try and get all the running backs involved. I mean, we know Matthews is going to be a roster cut really soon. That's coming up. They drafted Pumphrey, who's really a good change of pace, pass catching running back if he can, show that he can pass protect somewhat. And then also we're hearing a little bit of Wendell Smallwood love. Shout out to your boy Ty Miller. This is his guy.
He loves.
I still kind of believe in Smallwood, and I feel like if he's showing them something, he will get carries too. So I think it's going to be could turn into be like a three-headed monster where there's no one that's really startable out of the three guys. So to me, yeah, I mean, we can't look at last year's totals and expect anything close to that. Like Frank said, I mean, I think his ceiling this year with this team would be maybe 8 touchdowns, and I don't think he even hits that mark. So yeah, all those guys you named off, Kyle, I'm definitely taking those guys over Blunt.
Yeah, it feels like a Jeremy Hill light situation and a lot of mess and not something you want to be a part of. Let's head up and talk about your New York Giants there, Frank. And we'll start with the quarterback, Eli Manning. Obviously, OBJ is still there. They brought in Evan Ingram. They brought in Brandon Marshall. Sterling Shepard looks like he'll be okay, so that's another target for him to look at. Does he rank above Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz for you?
That's yes. I'm going to say that right now. Yes, I only because it's a big if, but I mean, our offensive weapons are just much better than the Cowboys and the Eagles. I'm sorry, besides Zeke, but our biggest issue is the offensive line. I mean, Eric Flowers, that son of a, and his cronies on that offensive line is the only thing. If we had, let's just say, even a 20th ranked PFF ranked defense, offensive line, we'd be unstoppable. Eli Manning led the league last year in release time, right? 2.5 seconds. Not because that was what our offense called, not because we're just a hurry-up offense. It's because he couldn't last 3 seconds behind that offensive line without getting killed. I mean, the slants that's it, just slant. If we just get a little bit better on our offensive line with that defense, with our offensive weapons in the pass game, that is, I don't know who's going to beat the Giants in the NFC. I really don't. I don't see it happen. But that's a big issue. That offensive line sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Little bias there. A little biased take there, Frank.
Well,
I like it.
Eli's definitely hitting the wall. I mean, he's just getting worse and worse. He's old, like what is he, 39 or 38? Something crazy. He's probably like 36.
He's
But
like
anyway,
20.
he's old. Yeah, right. He's obviously not getting any, and he needs all the help.
Yeah, he's 36. Ron, are you taking Eli Manning over Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott?
Not taking him over Dak. I think this safer pick, given the situation with Zeke. I mean, I guess if you asked me this question a week ago, I would say, yeah, I'm taking him over Wentz, but I can't take him over Dak. I just feel like he'll score those touchdowns with his legs, make up for what he is missing in those first 6 weeks of the season with Zeke. So yeah, I mean Carson Wentz, I just can't do it. I think that despite this offensive line that Frank brought up and their deficiencies there, he's got plenty of targets to throw the ball to. So yeah, I'm definitely taking Eli.
Yeah, for me, they're all really close. I'm probably fine taking whoever's sitting there. If I had my choice, I'm taking Wentz just because of all his weapons. But I mean, Eli would be right there, and I'm taking him over Dak for sure. So let's talk about those weapons. Obviously, let's talk about the running game first, though, Frank. And Paul Perkins, I don't know. The offensive line is a mess. Is Paul Perkins able to kind of, mitigate some of that and be a legit running back? Or do you think, Shane Vereen, Orleans Darkwa, Wayne Gallman, it's just they're all going to get, opportunities and no one's really going to be able to, become a fantasy, contributor on a regular basis?
I think Vereen is going to be the biggest running back, point scoring running back. I think he's going to score the most. I think he's going to be the most important to our offense. I like Paul Perkins, man. I wish he had a legit offensive line to run behind, because I think he's got the grit. Last year when they installed him into the offense, there was a spark. There was this energy, like Rashad Jennings was, a decent, solid running back for majority of his career, a backup running back. He wasn't a star. He wasn't a running back one. Paul Perkins might not be a running back one, but at least he's young. He's hungry. He runs angry. I cannot trust any running back besides Shane Vereen in this offense because you're passing to Shane Vereen. I just can't trust Paul Perkins. If he was on a different team, maybe, but this offensive line scares me. Even though the first off-season game, preseason game that they played, offensive line actually played okay. Flowers made one bonehead mistake, like totally missed his assignment. But other than that, they looked decent. Let's just hope if they have a decent offensive line and they get better, Paul Perkins, I'm okay with. I just can't trust him. I just can't trust him where he's going, especially.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I mean, at the end of the sixth, around Mark Ingram, Doug Martin, Tevin Coleman, some of the guys we were talking about earlier. Can you envision Vereen kind of having a Theo Riddick type season like he did a couple years ago, cool. Where, especially you talked about that offensive line, and if they're kind of a mess, and maybe they kind of just have Vereen out there, so when Eli's dropping back, he has someone to dump it off to every so often. Ron, what about you? Perkins, Vereen, kind of where are you at with this running back core?
Oh, Frank, I'm gonna shoot at your take here. You said trust in Vereen. I don't think they should be in the same sentence. I will give this to you. I do like your points as far as if he's healthy. That's my issue. I feel like Vereen, if he's can't stay healthy, then here we are. I think that will open the door for Paul Perkins. I actually do like Paul Perkins, but I can't really buy into that 6th-round ADP, that price right now. I can't pay that price tag for him, but I actually do think that he could be that type of running back that could eventually, by the end of the season, if there is an injury to Vereen, he could be that lead dog. If the offensive line does improve, like Frank alluded to, then he could be a type of running back that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the smoke clears, week 16, this could be a guy that we look back on and say he was worth a 6th-round investment. I know it's kind of risky. You're rolling the dice, but maybe you go 0 RB and he's like a higher upside type younger player in a situation where he could be that guy, and you just want to take a shot at him, I don't have a problem with it. I just probably wouldn't, want to make that type of investment in the 6th round. If I get him in the 7th or later, I think that's kind of the sweet spot for me, taking Perkins. And I know that Frank probably knows his numbers better than me, but I know that he averaged more yards per carry last year behind that, putrid offensive line than anybody else on that team. So I think that says something. The spark was there. Frank's right. I mean, he injected some life into that offense. So, I definitely think he could be a player that surprises us all.
Yeah. If I'm seeing the offensive line play the way they did, for the rest of the preseason, then I'm gonna get a little bit optimistic. I'm like, all right, maybe Paul Perkins, like they just have to figure out, some plays that work or not. But the offensive line was solid. I thought they were going to be a lot worse their first game against Pittsburgh, even though T.J. Watt, scored had 2 sacks, whatever. But other than that, once they calmed down, they played decent. Let's just keep it at that. If they continue to play like that in the preseason, then I would trust a little bit more Paul Perkins, a little bit more. It's just that last year left such a bad taste in my mouth. And Eric freaking Flowers and just everything sucked. I'm so angry. I mean, they went and Rhett Ellison this offseason. He was like their first signing, Rhett Ellison from Minnesota, because he can block.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he can literally block.
Oh, wait, you can block the other team? Oh, yeah, come over here. We'll definitely have a spot for you. He is going 6'11", so there is a good chance of getting him in the 7th. He's gone as late as the end of the 8th. So, I mean, if you can get him in the 7th, 8th round range, I love it.
Yeah.
Ron, as you mentioned, if you start wide receiver heavy, he'll definitely be one of my targets in that range, along with, Lacey and Mark Ingram, and I'll just throw a bunch of them in there and see which sticks. Let's talk about OBJ. Frank, is he your number 1 receiver in either format?
I think I still have Antonio Brown. 1. Yeah, but OBJ is right there. I mean, plus his wide receiver schedule, his 19th in the league. According to 4-4 again, his strength of schedule is 19th wide receiver. So, I mean, he is just a GOAT. He's a 10.0 on my goatometer. So trademark. TM,
and that's
TM.
Official. Yeah, those are official numbers. Ron, what about you? Where does OBJ rank among the elite of the elite?
I mean, what's not to like about OBJ? I mean, he's definitely got to be that first or second receiver off the board. Maybe with Martavis Bryant coming back and him being, a guy that's going to hit some big plays if he stays out of trouble, maybe that just is enough to kind of sway the scales a little bit if you believe in him, being out there and playing a full season with Antonio Brown, and you also factor in the possibility of Big Ben's body breaking down. We talk about these old quarterbacks. I mean, I think he could be gone before Eli, just because his body's just taking a toll.
He's gone next year. I'm almost positive.
Well, I just think the risk for him to sit out a few games this year during, crunch time for you, maybe in the fantasy playoffs or week 12 or 13 when you really need him, and then Antonio Brown's, who's starting then? Is it Josh Dobbs?
Yeah, RIP your team when Josh Dobbs is starting in week 17 or week 16.
Wave the white flag.
Yeah.
Didn't Ben crap the bed last year in the playoffs?
Yeah,
like week 13.
And I was looking
14?
like his production at home versus on the road. We're gonna talk AFC North on Wednesday, but his production at home versus on the road, I mean, it's night and day. Like, if you want somebody who's going to give you a little more consistency, Frank already mentioned that schedule. OBJ might be your guy. Now, Frank, with, we talked about him a little bit, but, Brandon Marshall coming to town, Sterling Shepard there, Evan Ingram. Do you worry that OBJ, obviously he's still going to be the one, he's still going to be a stud, but do you worry that his numbers come down just enough where he's closer to, Julio and Jordy and AJ Green than he is to Antonio Brown?
Actually, no, I don't think so. I mean, his targets might come a little down, might suffer a little bit, but the fact that there's so many more receivers or weapons on the field, I don't think the defense could totally roll all its coverage to OBJ. Like last year, they had Odell Beckham Jr., Victor Cruz, Sterling Shepard, and Will Tye. You know,
Yeah.
like now you could roll you of course you roll coverage to OBJ in that situation, but now you got Brandon March. You got to pick your poison: Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram if he's going to play, or Rhett Ellison, and Odell Beckham Jr. It's not as easy, in my opinion. So I think his targets might come down, but I think his production is going to be on the AB level.
Ron, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I think if anything, to Frank's points, I think this actually helps him. I mean, you have more weapons there that defenses have to scheme and take out, and recognize that Brandon Marshall can beat you, Sterling Shepard can beat you over the middle, and all those other names. So yeah, I think that only helps Odell Beckham. Now he's not the only guy that's really on that wide receiver pecking order that can beat you, and you have to scheme to take these other players out and make sure that the focal point, yeah, it should be on OBJ, but at the same time, these other guys are going to beat you if you let them beat you. So I think that only helps him.
Yeah. So let's talk about Evan Ingram, a guy I'm really excited about. Obviously, in Dynasty, I'm trying to get as many places I can because I think he has the talent to be special. But, we talk about rookie tight ends. They struggle in year one. Frank, do you kind of lump him into that rookie tight end class? Do you obviously Will Tye is still there, but do you expect him to be kind of that, or do you think he can be a little more Brandon Marshall-esque? Maybe it may still take a year to kind of fill in that role, assuming Marshall leaves next year. Or do you think he has those wide receiver skills and he has the potential to kind of be an impact this year, even if it is quote unquote at tight end?
Right. I don't see it this year. I don't think they signed Brandon Marshall for, I think he's getting $10 million or something crazy like that. They draft him early. I think they're grooming him. He's got that wide receiver skill set, physicality. I think somebody mentioned like he's like Mike Evans, but just a little slower.
Yeah.
So that's just fantastic. As a Giant fan, I'm so excited for Evan Ingram, but not this year. Yeah. I do lump him into that tight end, rookie tight end. I mean, Hunter Henry, like we just spoke about how great Hunter Henry was, and that was rare.
Yeah.
I don't think Evan Ingram is going to do that his rookie year. But I do next year or the year after, because that wide receiver 3-year breakout seems to have gone to the tight end wide receiver 3-year breakout. Like every tight end is breaking out year 3 now. So maybe Ingram next year, the year after, but this year I just don't see it. I think they might put him in some sub packages. I mean, he did go in the first round early.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to be a solid starter for you.
Yeah, I think there may be some like DFS potential depending on matchups, but I'm 100% with you. Ron, are you in agreement?
I think he kind of needs exactly what Hunter Henry had happened to him last year with, obviously the Keenan Allen injury, and then Gates was a little banged up. He definitely played off of that and got more opportunities as a rookie to make those big plays, and Rivers, felt comfortable throwing the ball to him. I think there would have to be those similar type of a situation open up for Ingram to really be, that type of level player where we can consistently depend on him. I don't think consistent's a good word, but the touchdowns, I think he could score. I mean, if there was an injury, God forbid, to Brandon Marshall or Sterling Shepard, any lengthy type of an injury, yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think in that case he would definitely get a bigger opportunity. I think he could definitely make some noise, and they're going to move this guy around. I mean, that's definitely Frank said it. I mean, he's an athletic specimen. I mean, he's probably one of those top tight ends. I mean, he's drafted in the first round for a reason, because he is that good, and he just kind of had to take kind of a backseat, but he was behind O.J. Howard because O.J. Howard was that guy. But I mean, I was there at Senior Bowl, and these two guys were on point. They were just as good. They both had days where they were better than the other one, and they were amazing tight ends to watch and come into the NFL. I think both these guys are better than Hunter Henry is.
Yeah, and I'm looking at where Brandon Marshall's currently going, middle of the 6th. Kelvin Benjamin, Willie Snead, Stephon Diggs, Jamison Crowder right before him, Emmanuel Sanders and Pierre Garçon right after. In PPR leagues, does that feel like the right range, or does that feel a little early, Frank?
That's early for me. I don't want Brandon Marshall where he's going right now. Yeah, I definitely don't want Brandon Marshall at 606. Give me Emmanuel Sanders. Give me Pierre Garçon in San Francisco when number one wide receiver in the Kyle Shanahan offense. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Yes, please. Devontae Parker, Deshaun Jackson, Cameron Meredith are going after him. I just can't get on. I think Brandon Marshall is going to do more good for the Giants in real football than in in fantasy football.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm looking at like the end of the 7th, kind of where Eric Decker, Randall Cobb, Cam Meredith, Tyrell Williams, John Brown. That feels a little more fair in terms of where he should be going. Obviously, that's the back end of where he has been going. So, Frank, I'm with you. Like, unless I'm getting him around that range, or like receivers are flying off the board for some reason, I probably won't own a ton of Brandon Marshall. But I am optimistic, and I think he could have a good season. Obviously, last year was definitely frustrating in New York, and it ended up being a terrible season for him. Yeah, well, I mean that's all you need to know.
That goes without saying.
Ron, what about you? Are you comfortable kind of taking him where he's currently going, or do you need him to drop a little bit in order to realistically take him?
Well, what was he last year? Like 4th round, somewhere around there, and I fell into that trap. Yeah, 3rd, 4th round, I fell into that trap in a couple drafts, and I just can't do it again this year. I had that sour taste in my mouth that Frank was talking about when it comes to Brandon Marshall. Yes, I mean, I think he can definitely, to Frank's point, I think he will be better for the team in general than he will be for his fantasy owners. 100% agree with that take. And quite honestly, again, we're talking about a receiver that's getting up there in years, and we saw it happen to Andre Johnson, and at some point, it's going to happen. So, to me, no. Actually, you brought up Randall Cobb, Cam Meredith. Those are two guys that I kind of think that I would rather have than Brandon Marshall, because I feel like they're upside their ceiling this year in their respective offenses. And I think Cobb, he's been too bad for too long, 2 years in a row. I think the bounce back year happens this year, and some of those touchdowns that went to Adams come his way. So these are two guys that I think are going to ascend a little bit from where they were last year, and I would rather have than Brandon Marshall, who's again still competing with one of the best receivers in football for targets.
Ron, what about
the other pieces?
Ron, what about John Brown? You're the president of the Smokey Brown fan club. Are you taking John Brown or Brandon Marshall?
Oh, I don't know that I can do that. I want to say yes, but I still feel like with the upside, maybe that he still can score somewhere between 6 and 8 touchdowns. Maybe the reception and yardage is down a little bit. But I still feel like in that division, and I think Frank would agree, you're going to be in some games, Chris, where Eli's going to be slinging that football all over the place, and there's going to be opportunities for him to score. So, David Johnson, it's a David Johnson show in Arizona, and Fitz is, maybe his swan song. So, to me, I like John Brown, but I'm still kind of pumping the brakes.
I think we found the bottom. I think that's where we need to cut it off, and John Brown would obviously Marshall's there. So the 9th round, late 8th, early 9th feels pretty fair. Let's talk about
Marshall was going at 7th wide receiver, 201 last year.
Oh,
13th overall. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Insane.
Wow. So
don't do it.
I mean, the fact that you're getting 4 rounds on it this year, that feels maybe he ends up in the middle. I know. Let's talk about the last team on our list, and that is the Washington Redskins. A lot to like, a lot of moving parts, a lot to dive into, but the one consistent thing, Mr. Kirk Cousins obviously was a really solid quarterback last year, going in the 8th round this year as QB 8. Frank, are you in on Kirk Cousins at that price?
Yes, I'm a big Kirk Cousins fan. I mean, the past year he's thrown for over 4,000 yards. Last year he almost threw for 5,000 yards. He's had at least 25 touchdowns, thrown touchdowns. The past 2 years he started what was he, sixth in pass attempts with 606, third in yards, 13th in touchdowns with 25, but he's only 2 behind Jameson Winston, who had 27, and Jameson Winston was 7th in touchdowns. So yeah, can he finish top 5? I'm 100% positive that he can. However, there's a couple of things. They got the 3rd hardest schedule for quarterbacks according to 4-4. And they lost 2 big targets. Well, 2 not tall targets, but 2 wide receivers with over 100 targets and over 1,000 yards in Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. Terrell Pryor comes in. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. I love Terrell Pryor, but going back to Kirk Cousins, I think, yes, he could be a top 5 quarterback. Yes.
And he has that rushing upside that really, adds a nice element. He has 9 rushing touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. So 5 2 years ago, 4 last year. So, when you need a little safety, when you need that little extra bump to get you into that class, especially when you obviously like a lot of his weapons, but there's a lot to think about there. I do want to make one bold call before we move on to the running back mess. Kirk Cousins will be your 2018 Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback.
No.
Write that down. Book it.
That would be nice.
Yeah. All you Antonio Brown Dynasty Leaguers, all you Le'Veon Bell Dynasty Leaguers, Kirk Cousins. Yeah, he's gonna come save your day. Ron, what do you think about that in Kirk Cousins? You're muted again.
He's on mute.
First of all, I know I'm outnumbered with you guys because I feel like you guys are the Kirk Cousins fan club here.
Yeah, honestly, we meet on Wednesdays right after the Carlos side meeting. It works out really nicely.
Yeah, I never got the invite, and I'm not upset about that actually. But yeah, I know the numbers are there. He's been consistent, but it's kind of exactly what Frank said with just all the moving parts. And really, the only guy still standing when the smoke cleared was Jamison Crowder that we can really count on. And yeah, Frank's boy Doxson, if he's healthy, could be a big weapon. But I don't know. I mean, I like Winston after him if I can get him around the same ballpark. And I also kind of still like Cam Newton. And I think everybody's going to sour on him this year. We know what his upside is. I mean, we saw this in 2015. He was Superman, definitely, and just putting up monster-type numbers. So I think that, again, it could be the every other year thing with Cam if he's healthy with the weapons they have. So those are 2 quarterbacks I kind of like a little bit more than Cousins because of the weapons he has and just the fact that I think, Cam can still run. He still will run. And Winston, he'll score a few rushing touchdowns too. So, I get that. Maybe Cousins is a little bit safer. But if I can get Winston and Mariota a little later, I'm on board.
They're all – so, Ron, they're all going in the same round. Cousins is going 805, Winston 809, Mariota is 812, and Cam is 906. So he's a full round later. Are you taking Cousins before Winston, Mariota, or Cam Newton?
No, I think I'll wait. I'll wait to see which one of those guys falls to me, and that'll be the guy I take.
Frank, what about you? Are you taking
that much?
Frank,
yes.
Are you taking Winston over? Are you taking Cousins over Winston, Mariota, and Newton?
Yeah, actually, yes. In redraft, I would definitely take Kirk Cousins. I'm gonna go and say he's gonna be on San Francisco, but that's like chalk.
Yeah,
next year.
That feels very safe too. But Ron, so obviously you're not super high on him this year, but you're obviously, if he's the guy that's sitting there out of the 4, you're very comfortable taking him in that range in the 9th, 10th round.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like he kind of profiles as a safer pick in that ballpark. But I think the upside with those other guys is a little bit higher, and I guess that would be, if I want to go safer, yeah, Cousins, fine. I'm fine with him there. If I want to go shoot for the moon and stars, I think those other guys have that higher ceiling.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. Let's talk about the running back mess. Obviously, they brought in Samaje Perine, a guy a lot of people loved. He's a really talented running back out of Oklahoma, a guy that I've been trying to get in a lot of dynasty leagues. It was pretty much him and Evan Ingram were 2 of my big targets. But Fat Rob Kelly is still there, and I think he's gonna be a thing, even if it's, maybe P. Ryan ends up taking over, but I don't think it's early. Frank, where do you fall? Rob Kelly, Samaje P. Ryan, just for this year?
Rob Kelly, just for this year.
Yeah.
He's already having, like, some reports are saying that P. Ryan had some fumbling issues in camp.
Yeah. And why did Matt
has-
Jones?
Right, he fumbled against the Detroit Lions, and they lost by 2 points.
Yeah.
Right, in the end zone, by the
Yeah.
way. Matt Jones fumbles in the end zone, and then they lose by 2 points, and then the next week, Rob Kelly's starting from then on.
Yeah.
So, yes, Rob Kelly has his job because of fumble issues. Samaje P. Ryan is a rookie. There's always a learning curve with rookies. So, like, unless you are a Zeke, unless you are a top-level running back or rookie coming out, I just think that you're already starting behind the 8 ball, basically.
Yeah.
So I think Rob Kelly is going to hold on to this job for this year. But let's rejoice a little bit, because Rob Kelly, after week 8 of last year, was 5th in red zone carries. So draft Rob Kelly, draft him, and just play him. I'm a Rob Kelly fan. I like Fat Rob for this year.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Ron, what about you? Are you in agreement? Are you team Fat Rob for this year?
I'm definitely warming up to Fat Rob, and Frank's bringing some fire there with the numbers and how he finished the season. I mean, that we need to look at that. Also know that we all are guilty of catching that rookie fever, falling in love with a certain player that we think has a really great skill set, and he does. But also, he wasn't a running back at Oklahoma that was pass protecting, involved in the passing game, because they had Mixon. And I also think that the things that he brought up as far as fumbling, I've heard the same things. And if he can't correct that, and that's a habit, he's not going to be on the field. So yeah, this year redraft, I think Fat Rob's another one of those running backs. If you're going 0 RB and loading up on receivers early, he's a prime target.
If you guys are taking a rookie running back this year, Frank, who are you taking?
I was gonna say Mixon right off the bat, but now, like, Dalvin Cook is getting some rave reviews, and I
Team
like
Dalvin over
Mixon,
here.
Dalvin Cook. I love them both. So I'll be happy to have it. You're getting great reports for Mixon and great reports for Dalvin Cook. It's tough. Right now. I wouldn't be able to tell you. But you know what? I'll go. My initial reaction is it's Joe Mixon.
Ron, what about you? Or you get one rookie running back for the fantasy this year. Who do you want?
They both play on teams with a terrible offensive line. The difference is I think the Bengals are going to have more opportunities. I think I have more faith in Andy Dalton. There's more weapons there. I think, to me, I'm going Joe Mixon because I think it is close. And Dalvin Cook may get more volume, but what is he going to be able to do behind that line?
Plus, Cincinnati's got the 29th easiest schedule for running backs.
Yeah, Jeremy Hill's going to feast in that offense. I cannot wait. I did want to throw out a little nugget. This is via Jared Smola of Draft Sharks. In 9 total games as Washington's lead back, Kelly drew 5 top 8 running defenses and 0 bottom 8. So when he was going off and doing well as a runner, he was facing some of the best defenses in all of the NFL. So, if he gets a little more balance this year, I think, he could be a real difference maker. And, we talked about it. We were talking about Zeke, but he's going in the 9th round of PPR leagues, 8th round in standard. Give me that value all day long.
Yeah.
Let's talk Terrell Pryor. Let's talk about Mr. 1,000 yards, Mr. 77 catches with the Browns. Obviously had 4 touchdowns, making his transition. He's an interesting guy, Frank, just because, this is a guy that we saw finally do stuff, finally break out. And as a free agent, it didn't seem like there was a ton of interest. Obviously ended up signing a 1-year deal with the Redskins. What do you expect from him this year? And, I've seen people get real hyped on him, going, as high as the, late 2nd, early 3rd. Like, are you comfortable taking Pryor kind of in that range?
I like anybody that knows me knows I'm a Pryor fan. With Cleveland, what he did with Cleveland is just, you got to commend the guy. He was a quarterback, and last year was his first year wide receiver, and I just totally respect him for what he did. Unfortunately, last year, I guess no team wanted to sign wide receivers to long-term deals. Alshon got a one-year deal. Terrell Pryor got a one-year deal. I was about to say Calvin Johnson. You believe that?
Keep dreaming. He's gonna sign a one-year deal somewhere. Don't worry, Frank.
He's back.
Hope so. He's back. I'm a fan of Pryor in this offense with Kirk Cousins. And you see this tape. I know I was giving everybody a hard time on Twitter about, enough with this camp tape. Who cares? But I did like seeing Terrell Pryor catching these touchdowns, Yeah. It was like, wow, he looks good, man. He's putting on a show in camp, so I think he's going to do well. I do like where he's going. What did you say? He's going in the second round?
He's going, I just saw it. He's going 304 on average, so some people are taking in the second. That'd be too rich for my blood. But when he gets in the middle of the third, end of the third, getting close to that fourth, like I think that's definitely an interesting range. Especially the way I start teams, I tend to be receiver heavy. So if I get Jordy Nelson, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, and T.Y. Hilton, and I'm getting him kind of as my third guy, like I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
I don't hate either. I wouldn't want him as my wide receiver one, and I'd be kind of weird as my wide receiver two. So you know what? Maybe he is too rich for my blood.
Yeah, or maybe would you be okay taking him kind of in that third round range and then backing him up with Michael Crabtree, Jarvis Landry, Larry Fitzgerald, somebody that's a little more safe. So if it's not working out, at least you have somebody that you could play at wide receiver too and not hate it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I would definitely do that.
Ron, what about you? Pryor, are you interested?
I guess again I'm gonna be the outcast of the group because I'm actually I'm that guy.
That's what you're here for, Ron.
Yeah. Just yell at me, pick on me. No, seriously, if I'm looking at it, the same thing we're looking at with Fantasy Football Calculator and just ADP, he's in that third round range. I know he had a great breakout year last year with Cleveland of all teams, but Frank brought up Demaryius Thomas. He's going right after him. Keenan Allen, Alshon Jeffrey, and Allen Robinson, and throw in Crabtree, even later. I think those are all guys that I just have a little bit more faith in. Maybe not Allen Robinson so much because we don't know which Blake Bortles which version we're gonna see this year.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be the 2015 version or the 2016 version. But to me, I want to take a little higher upside wide receiver one. I would definitely take Keenan Allen over him. I think I would do the same thing with Demaryius Thomas and also Alshon Jeffrey. So
what about Nuke Hopkins?
Those other guys, I'm probably taking Nuke because he's definitely the number one. I think when Watson takes over, they're going to make some music together.
Yeah, so week one.
Week one, it's with Tom Savage. Yeah, week one, I'm probably going Pryor.
Yeah, if Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Kaiser aren't starting week one, I will be very, very surprised. So if we're all looking at other receivers kind of in that third round range, obviously we think Pryor has potential, but there's other guys we like there. Are we more interested in Jamison Crowder? Obviously in PPR formats going mid-sixth, we're talking about Brandon Marshall is going right in front of him. I think I would take Crowder all day over Brandon Marshall. What about you, Frank?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I'd rather have Crowder over Marshall. I don't know about this whole 100 receptions thing that everybody was talking about, but he's definitely going to get fed. Like we said earlier, two 100-yard, 100 target wide receivers aren't on the team anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's got to get. Even though Crowder saw 99 targets last year, and he only had 67 receptions. So even if you bump him up 20. Right, 20 targets maybe. He sees 120, 121, 25 targets. I don't see him catching 100 receptions, but I still want him over Brandon Marshall. I think his PPR floor Just that's a fine value in the sixth.
Yeah,
for
yeah. I
his
think like 80 catches, 1,000 yards on 115, 120-ish targets feels pretty safe. Ron,
Yeah.
what about you? You think those are pretty reasonable numbers? You think 120 targets, maybe a little bit more, maybe approaches, 80, 90 catches?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's in his realm of outcomes. It's a wide realm of outcomes given the moving parts, but he's the one constant, and I think that's definitely going to help his cause to be that guy who could possibly get in that 120 target range. So, yeah, maybe the hype's getting a little bit overboard with the 100 catches, but I definitely could see him, having a great year, and I think I definitely trust him more than I do Brandon Marshall. And him being the focal point, if he is, I mean, it should be. So yeah, in PPR, you gotta love Crowder. I love some Clam Crowder myself. Sixth round, sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a guy that obviously makes a ton of sense, and I in PPR leagues targeting him all day. A guy we've kind of glossed over, but I wanna make sure we hit on before we hit the tight ends and Frank Spoyd, Josh Doxson, Chris Thompson. We were talking about the battle between P. Ryan and between Fat Rob, and obviously that feels like it's going to be a battle for first and second down work. And Chris Thompson should still have his third down role. 47 targets 2 years ago, 62 targets last year. Frank, he almost got 50 catches last year. Does that feel like something that he could be kind of in that range again this year for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see what's changed besides P. Ryan. Um, but yeah, I don't see why he can't see another, I don't know, 70 targets. He had 62 last year, like you said, maybe 65. Maybe this is his ceiling: 60 targets, 50 receptions, 400. So yeah, I mean, it seems like he's got the third down pass catching, change of pace, whatever they want to call it, that's sewn up. Because if I'm not mistaken, Rob Kelly wasn't the whole. He's not. He had what 18 targets last year. He caught 12 of them though, so that's a good catch rate right
Yeah,
there.
there you
So,
go.
Small sample size.
82 yards for
Yeah.
82 yards. Yeah. So no, Chris Thompson has his role. He's got a firm grasp on his role, and I think he's gonna. That's his. That's his going.
It's his bread
stat
and
line,
butter.
I guess.
Yeah, and Ron, you talked about all those targets leaving town. That feels like with all the targets leaving, he's pretty safe to kind of soak up his typical batch of targets. So if
Yeah,
we,
I mean, he seems. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say if we assume that he's getting his role, Pryor's obviously gonna get some. Crowder's gonna be, in his range. Obviously, should get a little bit of a bump. Do you think there's room for Josh Doxson? Do you think there's room for another pass catcher? Do you think maybe if we get a healthy Jordan Reed, he kind of soaks it up? Like, where do you envision some of these targets going?
If Josh Doxson's healthy, I'm definitely jumping on the Josh Doxson train with Frank leading this train. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, his talent is through the roof. We really are judging a player on really not much at all because he didn't get an opportunity to show that last year due to the injury. So I think if people are backing off of him because of that and because of the new weapons with Pryor, I mean, I think he has just as much opportunity and chance to be, their big time weapon down the field to make those big plays. That's definitely something he did in college and at TCU. So this is another player that I definitely think Kirk Cousins can build some chemistry with if he's out there. I don't like seeing him miss time early on. And right now, I want to see him out there in practices and playing in preseason to really start buying in on drafting him in redraft leagues this year. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. But yeah, he's definitely an intriguing player to me. And if you can find, you can get him late as a pivot from maybe you don't believe in Pryor, like totally believe like I don't. So again, that's a nice pivot late.
Yeah,
And
I
a guy
mean,
that
for
has
a guy,
upside.
yeah, I mean, he's going in the late 12th. Like I'm in one of my leagues that's drafting this weekend. Basically, there's a 2-round bump for wherever you draft him. So, he's definitely on my short list of guys I'm going to target at the end. And, hopefully, if he ends up popping a little bit, even if he shows flashes, a guy that you can get, as a 10th rounder next year or 11th rounder, like that's great value. So let's talk about Jordan Reed, because obviously when he's healthy, he has potential to be the tight end one. But injuries are always a discussion with him. He's already dealing with foot issues. Frank, where are you at with Jordan Reed, and is he a guy that you're comfortable taking, kind of in that he's going in the middle of the 5th right now in PPR? Obviously some people are taking him as high as the 3rd. Like, are you comfortable taking Jordan Reed in that range?
You know what's crazy? Like in SFB, I took him in this range, and I didn't like it. As soon as I hit the draft, I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't have done this. Like, I'm all upset because my SFB team is like worried. I got Jordan Reed starting. He worries me, but the problem, like you said, Kyle, is that when he's healthy, he's an animal. He can win you a league. He won me a league. He helped me win a league. You know what I mean? So
I think he can help you win SFB. I think that's like, if I'm taking Jordan Reed, and you're in a league where you're going to be shooting for upside, and for those of you who don't know, it's Scott Fishbowl. Like, everybody's in it, I think, at this point, except for Ron, which is the thing that still makes me laugh. But it's all 12-team leagues, and then basically you get thrown into a big pool at the end, and you're going to be in the top half of the scoring. So you're looking for that high upside, and I think that's a great example of what Jordan Reed can be. But Ron, he's also that guy that gets injured in week 6 and then misses 6 weeks, and you're scrambling to the waiver wire and hoping that, like, Vernon Davis or Kobe Fleener or something can step in and Jeremy Sprinkle.
I'll be 100% letting my league mates take him where he's going right now, and I'll be 100% happy with instead getting a guy like Jimmy Graham, maybe around the same ballpark, maybe even a round later.
Yeah, he's even at 601, so 507 to 601.
Right, and if I'm taking that risk, as far as a player with injury history, why not take Tyler Eifert in the back end of the 6th or mid-7th if he falls that far as a pivot? I don't question everything you guys said as far as his talent and him being a monster when he's out there. I just have my reservations about paying the inflated price and not knowing if he's going to be a guy that I can depend on all season long, or even half the season.
Yeah, and that's really a concern, especially in most redraft formats where you have a shallow bench. You don't have, you can't store 3, 4, 5 players on your bench, and still have your waiver wire claims and still be bye weeks come. It becomes a major burden on you at that point. So he's definitely a guy that if you're gonna draft him and you're gonna draft him in that range, you better be really comfortable about the rest of your team sitting and kind of stability there, because if you're mixing and matching tight ends and playing the matchups, and you're trying to make up that value, because if he plays 16 games, he could be the tight end one, he could win you a league. But if he doesn't, which he hasn't the past couple of years, you got a little bit of work ahead of you on the waiver wire and in-season management.
Plus, according to 4for4, they have the 3rd hardest schedule against tight ends.
Yeah.
So that's another, another check mark in the con column.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a legit thing to consider yourself, especially when you're looking at, you're in a range where Greg Olson's goes right before him, Jimmy Graham, Tyler Eifert go, right after him or a little bit later. So you really have to pick and choose your battles and figure out who makes the most sense for your team there. Yeah, I mean, if you draft him, good luck to you. All right, guys, this was a lot of fun. We obviously dove in deep all parts of the NFC East. Make sure you follow Frank on Twitter, probably one of the best Twitter follows in all of.
Thank you very much, Kyle.
Absolutely. Make sure you are checking out the Bull Rush podcast. Definitely on my short list for every week. Frank, anything else you want to promote before we get out of here?
Yes, I'm also on a redraft podcast on the DHH Dynasty Happy Hour network. So it's called the Fantasy Tilt with Tim Torch and Keaton Denley. So yeah, come check us out. I mean, we record it every Wednesday. I don't know when it comes out. I think Wednesday night or Thursday morning.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, check us out over there too. Thank you guys. It's been a ton of fun. It's always fun with you guys. Can't wait for the season, man. I can't
know.
wait for my Giants to win the NFC East.
It's almost here.
And face
Humiliate.
and face the
the
Tennessee
Cowboys.
Titans in the Super Bowl and get destroyed.
Yeah.
You ready for that?
And then
Alright.
win.
No.
Now they're gonna face the New England Patriots again when they're
Yeah.
18-0,
Oh,
and then
that'll be
hand
so
them their
good.
first.
All right, I'm on board. I could be on board with that. I could be on board with that.
We
for
can all
Ron,
dream. We can all dream big.
yeah. How many wins for the Bears this year, Ron? 3, 4? Dream big,
About
Ron.
4.
Dream big. But for Ron the Mad Dog McCleese, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys. We'll be back on Wednesday with Jared Smola talking AFC North. Make sure you rate and review the pod on iTunes, 5 stars. Check out Fake Pigskin. There's a lot of really exciting stuff happening right now. I have a ton of new articles that came out, so check all that out. But until next time, we will talk to you.